Nebraska, November 2024. A woman named Mary Baldridge was cleaning out her late mother's bedroom when she found a box under the bed. Inside were 150 handwritten letters, yellowed with age, covered in teenage handwriting. Every single one was signed, Love, Tupac. The world knew Tupac Shakur as the hardest rapper in hip-hop, the man who tattooed T-Life across his stomach, the gangsta who recorded entire albums about street violence, the revolutionary who challenged the system with raw, aggressive music. But nobody knew about the 150 love letters he wrote to a white ballet dancer when he was 16 years old. Letters filled with poetry, dreams, and a tenderness that would shock anyone who thought they knew Tupac. When those letters were finally shared with the world in 2025, they revealed a side of Tupac that had been hidden for 37 years. A side that explained everything about who he really was before the fame, before the violence, before the world turned him into a legend. This is the story of how a discovery in Nebraska changed everything we thought we knew about Tupac Shakur. Baltimore, Maryland. September 1986. Tupac Amaru. Shakur walked into the Baltimore School for the Arts on his first day as a 10th grader, wearing clothes that were too small and shoes with holes in the soles. He was 15 years old, painfully skinny, with a gap between his front teeth and braces that made him self-conscious every time he smiled. He walked like a duck, his feet pointing outward in an awkward waddle that made other students laugh. His hair wasn't styled. His clothes weren't cool. Everything about him screamed poor kid from the projects. But when Tupac auditioned for the drama department, something magical happened. He performed a monologue from Shakespeare's Othello, and his voice filled the auditorium with such power and emotion that every teacher in the room stopped what they were doing to listen. "That boy has something special," drama teacher Donald Hicken whispered to his colleague. "I don't know what it is yet, but it's there." Tupac was accepted into the school's acting program. Suddenly, this awkward kid from Greenmount Avenue was surrounded by talented, privileged students who had been training in the arts since childhood. Most of them came from families with money. Most of them had never experienced poverty. And most of them looked at Tupac like he didn't belong. Except for one girl. Mary Baldridge was 15 years old, a ballet dancer with perfect posture and graceful movements that made her look like she was floating when she walked. She had long brown hair and the kind of confidence that came from growing up in a stable, educated family. Her father, Jim Baldridge, was the chairman of the Maryland Communist Party. Her mother, Margaret, was a community organizer. They had raised Mary to look past color, past economic status, past all the superficial things that divided people. When Mary first saw Tupac in the hallway, she didn't see a poor black kid with awkward clothes. She saw someone interesting, someone different, someone who looked like he had stories to tell. "Hi," she said, walking up to him between classes. "I'm Mary. You're new, right?" Tupac, who had been bracing himself for rejection or mockery, was stunned. This beautiful, poised girl was actually talking to him, not looking past him, not laughing at him, actually seeing him. "Yeah," he managed to say, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm Tupac, just transferred from Dunbar." "Tupac," Mary repeated, letting the name roll off her tongue. "That's beautiful." What does it mean? Nobody had ever asked him that before. Nobody at his old school cared about the meaning of his name. But Mary was looking at him with genuine curiosity, waiting for his answer. "It's named after a revolutionary," Tupac explained, his confidence growing. "Tupac Amaru, too. He led a rebellion against the Spanish in Peru." "My mom wanted me to have the name of a fighter," Mary smiled. "That's perfect. You look like someone who's going to change the world." In that moment, standing in a Baltimore school hallway, Tupac Shakur fell in love for the first time in his life. Over the next few weeks, Tupac and Mary became inseparable. They sat together at lunch while he told her about growing up with Black Panther parents, about moving constantly, about the poverty and struggle that had defined his childhood. She listened without judgment, without pity, just with genuine interest in understanding his world. Mary introduced Tupac to the Baltimore Young Communist League, where her parents were active members. For the first time in his life, Tupac found a community of people who cared about social justice, who talked about revolution and equality, who believed that the system could be changed. "This is where I belong," Tupac told Mary one evening after a meeting. "These people get it. They understand what my mom was fighting for, but it wasn't just politics that connected them. It was art." Tupac wrote constantly. Poetry filled his notebooks, verses that he would rap for Mary in the stairwells between classes. She would watch him transform from that awkward, shy kid into this confident artist who could make words dance and lyrics come alive. "You're going to be famous one day," Mary told him after he performed a rap he'd written about police brutality. "The world needs to hear what you have to say. You really think so?" Tupac asked, his vulnerability showing through his bravado. "I know so," Mary said with certainty. By November 1986, Tupac and Mary were officially dating. It was innocent, the way teenage relationships are supposed to be. Holding hands in the hallways, stolen kisses behind the theater, long conversations about their dreams and fears. But what made their relationship extraordinary was the letters. Tupac couldn't afford to take Mary on dates. He didn't have money for movies or restaurants or the things that normal teenage boyfriends did. So instead, he wrote to her. Every single day, Tupac would write Mary a letter. Sometimes the letters were short, just a few lines about his day. Sometimes they were long, multiple pages of poetry and confessions. Sometimes they were funny, making her laugh with jokes and observations about their classmates. And sometimes they were heartbreakingly beautiful, revealing a depth of emotion that most 16-year-old boys couldn't articulate. "Mary," one letter began, "when I'm with you, I feel like I can be myself. Not the tough guy everyone expects. Not the poor kid everyone pities. Just me, just Tupac, and that's enough." Another letter read, "You make me want to be better. Not just better at rapping or acting, but better as a person. You see something in me that I don't even see in myself yet. Thank you for that." Mary kept every single letter. She would read them late at night, long after her parents had gone to sleep, treasuring every word like they were precious gems. Their relationship deepened as junior year progressed. Tupac and Mary became known around school as the unlikely couple, the gangly black rapper and the graceful white ballet dancer. But to anyone who actually knew them, it made perfect sense. They were both artists, both dreamers, both people who believed that art could change the world. They worked together on a project for school, going door to door in Baltimore neighborhoods to talk about gun violence and teen pregnancy. It was Mary's idea, inspired by her parents' activism, but Tupac threw himself into it with passion. "People listen when you talk to them with respect," Tupac explained to Mary as they walked from house to house. "Not at them, with them." That's what my mom taught me. Watching Tupac connect with people in those Baltimore neighborhoods, Mary saw his future more clearly than he did. This wasn't just a talented kid with dreams. This was someone who could genuinely make a difference. But happiness, especially for Tupac Shakur, never lasted long. Spring 1988, Greenmount Avenue. Tupac came home from school one afternoon to find his mother, Ofeni, sitting at the kitchen table with that look on her face. The look that meant everything was about to change again. "Baby, we need to talk," Ofeni said, her voice heavy with exhaustion and something else. Defeat, maybe, or resignation. "What's wrong, Ma?" Tupac asked, though he already knew the answer. "Something was always wrong. We're moving," Ofeni said simply. "To California, Marin City. Your aunt can get us a place to stay there, and I need a fresh start." Tupac felt his world collapsing. When? 2 months. Right after school ends. Tupac thought about Mary, about the Baltimore School for the Arts, about the Young Communist League, about finally having found a place where he belonged. "I can't leave," Tupac said, his voice rising. "Ma, I can't. I'm finally somewhere good. I have friends. I have Mary. I can't just—" "We're going," Ofeni interrupted, her tone making it clear this wasn't a discussion. "I know it's hard, baby, but we don't have a choice." That night, Tupac wrote Mary the longest letter he'd ever written. 10 pages of explaining, apologizing, confessing how much she meant to him. He cried while he wrote it, his tears smudging some of the ink. When he gave it to her the next day at school, Mary read it right there in the hallway, her own tears falling onto the pages. "We'll make it work," Mary said, though both of them knew that was probably a lie. "We'll write letters. We'll call when we can. This doesn't have to be the end." But they both knew it was. The last 2 months of Tupac's time in Baltimore were bittersweet. He and Mary spent every possible moment together, creating memories they could hold on to when 3,000 miles separated them. They went to Druid Hill Park and sat under trees while Tupac read her poetry. They attended Young Communist League meetings together, holding hands while they listened to speeches about social justice. They performed together in a school play, Tupac as Roma and Mary helping with choreography. And every single day, Tupac wrote her letters. By the time he left Baltimore in June 1988, he had given Mary over 100 letters. 150 by some counts, though Mary herself lost exact track. The goodbye was devastating. At the Baltimore bus station, with Afeni and his sister Sekiwa already on the Greyhound that would take them to California, Tupac and Mary held each other and cried. "Don't forget me," Mary whispered. "How could I ever forget you?" Tupac said, his voice breaking, "You're the first person who ever really saw me." He kissed her one last time, then got on the bus. Mary stood on the platform, watching through her tears as the bus pulled away, taking Tupac out of her life and toward a destiny that neither of them could have imagined. They tried to stay in touch. For the first few months after Tupac moved to California, letters went back and forth. But the distance was too great. The lives they were building were too different. Tupac was struggling in Marin City, kicked out of his mother's apartment at 17, sleeping on friends' couches, trying to break into the rap scene. Mary was finishing high school in Baltimore, continuing her ballet training, living the stable life her family provided. Eventually, the letters stopped coming. They lost touch completely. Mary went to college, eventually moved to Nebraska, got married, had a life. Tupac became Tupac, the biggest rapper in the world, the revolutionary voice of a generation, and then, tragically, a murder victim at 25. Mary watched his rise and fall from a distance. She saw him on MTV, this gangsta rapper with thug life tattooed on his stomach, rapping about violence and sex and street life, and she struggled to reconcile that image with the sweet, sensitive boy who had written her poetry. She kept his letters in a box, moved them from Baltimore to Nebraska, put them under her bed, and didn't look at them for years because it hurt too much to remember what they had and what had been lost. And then, in 2010, her mother found the box. "Mary," her mother called from the bedroom one day while helping Mary clean. "What are all these letters?" Mary came into the room and saw her mother holding the yellowed envelopes, a look of wonder on her face. Those are from Tupac," Mary said quietly. "From when we dated in high school?" Her mother's eyes went wide. "Tupac Shakur? The rapper?" "Yes, before he was famous. Before everything." Her mother began reading one of the letters, tears forming in her eyes. "Mary, these are beautiful. Does anyone know about these?" "No," Mary said. "They're private. They're just for me." And so the letters stayed hidden for another 14 years, tucked away under Mary's bed, a secret connection to a world-famous man that nobody knew about, until Jeff Pearlman came calling. 2024, New York. Jeff Pearlman was a sports writer. He'd written best-selling books about football teams, basketball dynasties, baseball legends. He was not, by any reasonable measure, the obvious person to write a comprehensive biography of Tupac Shakur. But that's exactly what he decided to do. "I knew people would question it," Pearlman later said in interviews. "A white guy from rural New York writing about Tupac? I get it. But that's why I was going to do it, right? I was going to talk to everyone, find every story. Leave no stone unturned." For 3 years, Pearlman conducted 652 interviews. He talked to childhood friends, classmates, relatives, musicians, actors, drug dealers, cops, bodyguards, producers, anyone who had ever been in Tupac's orbit. He went to New York, Baltimore, Oakland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. He immersed himself completely in understanding every phase of Tupac's life. One name kept coming up when people talked about Tupac's Baltimore years: Mary Baldridge. She was his first real girlfriend, one classmate told Pro-Man. He was crazy about her. Mary was special to him, another friend recalled. He wrote her all these letters. Pro-Man tracked Mary down to Nebraska. When he called her, explaining his project, Mary was hesitant. "I haven't talked about Tupac publicly in almost 30 years, Mary said. Our relationship was private." "It was ours. I understand," Pro-Man said. "But the world only knows one version of Tupac, the gangsta, the thug. They don't know about the poet, the romantic, the kid who was thoughtful and sensitive. Your story could help people understand the real him." Mary was silent for a long moment. "Then, my mother found some letters Tupac wrote me when we were teenagers. I've never shown them to anyone." Pro-Man's heart started racing. "How many letters?" "Over 100, maybe 150. I honestly lost count." "Mary," Pro-Man said, barely able to contain his excitement. "Would you be willing to share them, even just parts of them?" Another long silence. "Then, if you come to Nebraska, I'll show them to you. I'll be there tomorrow," Pro-Man said without hesitation. The next day, Jeff Pro-Man was on a plane to Nebraska. When he arrived at Mary's house, she led him to her bedroom and pulled out a box from under the bed. "I haven't read most of these in years," Mary said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's hard, remembering what we had, knowing how it all turned out." She handed the box to Pro-Man. He opened it carefully, reverently, like he was handling sacred artifacts. Which, in a way, he was. Inside were 150 letters, each one handwritten in Tupac's distinctive scrawl. Some were on notebook paper. Some were on whatever scraps Tupac could find. All of them were filled with words that revealed a side of Tupac Shakur that the world had never seen. Pro-Man spent the entire day reading. Mary sat nearby, sometimes crying, sometimes smiling, as Pro-Man discovered the teenage Tupac through his own words. One letter was about a Shakespeare play they had studied together. "Mary, when you explained Juliet to me, you made me understand that love can be worth dying for. I never got that before, but now I do. You're my Juliet." Another was pure poetry. "Your smile is like sunshine breaking through Baltimore clouds. Your laugh is like music I wish I could record. Your eyes see me in a way nobody else ever has." Some letters were about his dreams. "One day I'm going to be famous. Not for me, but so I can use that platform to help people. So I can speak for all the kids like me who don't have a voice. And when that happens, I'll remember that you were the first person who believed I could do it." And some were heartbreakingly vulnerable. "Sometimes I'm scared, Mary. Scared that I'm not good enough. Scared that I'll end up like so many guys from my neighborhood dead or in prison before I am 25. But when I am with you, that fear goes away. You make me believe there's a different future possible." As Pro-Man read letter after letter, he realized he was holding the key to understanding Tupac in a way that nobody else had. These letters revealed the poet, the dreamer, the sensitive soul who existed before the world hardened him into Tupac the gangsta rapper. "Mary," Pro-Man said when he finished reading, "these letters need to be in the book. Not all of them, but excerpts. The world needs to see this side of him." Mary nodded slowly. "Okay, but do it right. Honor who he really was. Not just the image. I promise," Pro-Man said. October 21st, 2025. Only God Can Judge Me. The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur was published. The book became an instant sensation. But nothing generated more attention than the chapter about Mary Baldridge and the letters. Headlines around the world screamed variations of 150 love letters reveal Tupac's hidden romantic side, and Gangsta rapper secret past, the poetry nobody knew about. Fans were shocked. Here was Tupac Shakur, a man who had rapped about thug life and street violence, revealed as a lovesick teenager writing love poetry to a ballet dancer. The contrast was so stark that some people initially didn't believe it. But Mary confirmed every word. In interviews promoting the book, She spoke publicly for the first time about her relationship with Tupac. He was gentle, Mary told one interviewer, tears in her eyes. He was thoughtful. He cared so deeply about people and about making the world better. That's the Tupac I knew. That's the Tupac I loved. The revelation sparked a global conversation. Suddenly, songs like Dear Mama and Keep Your Head Up made even more sense. The man who wrote such tender lyrics had learned that tenderness writing to Mary. Those letters show us the Tupac who was stolen from the world, one fan wrote. Not by the bullets that killed him, but by the circumstances that forced him to hide who he really was. The Baltimore School for the Arts added an exhibit featuring the letters. Students stood in front of them, reading Tupac's teenage handwriting, seeing themselves in his vulnerability. For Mary, sharing the letters was both painful and cathartic. I kept them hidden for so long, she explained. But by hiding them, I was helping perpetuate the one-dimensional view of who he was. The hip-hop community realized their hero had been more complex than anyone knew. Behind the bravado was a real person who had loved and lost and struggled. In early 2026, a traveling exhibition called Dear Mary, The Letters of Tupac Shakur was announced, featuring selections from the letters and interviews with Mary. Mary, now in her 50s, found herself an unlikely keeper of Tupac's legacy. I think about him a lot, she said. I wonder who he would have become if he'd lived longer. But I know that everything he became was connected to who he was when he wrote these letters. He never stopped being that gentle, dreaming boy. He just had to hide it to survive. The story of the 150 letters reminds us that we never fully know the people we think we know. Behind every public persona is a private person. The tough exterior often protects a tender heart. Tupac Shakur wrote 150 letters to Mary Baldridge when he was 16 years old. In those letters, he revealed himself completely. And decades later, when those letters finally saw the light of day, they changed how the world understood one of the most influential artists of all time. He was the Gangsta rapper. He was the revolutionary. He was the poet. He was the romantic. He was all of these things. The boy who wrote Mary, You Make Me Believe in a Different Future, grew into the man who wrote Dear Mama and Changes. The tenderness was always there. The world just hadn't known where to look. Until 150 letters from under a bed in Nebraska revealed the truth. Tupac Shakur had always been more than the world let him be. He wasn't just one thing, he was everything. And the letters prove it.